Sort of public humiliation makes affair recovery, I would say, almost 1,000,000 times harder.
Have you been wondering how to break free from the affair once and for all? Now's the time to take back your life, your emotions, find happiness, joy, and fulfillment with your marriage. HealingBrokenTrust.com is the place where you can find resources to take the healing journey to the next level. You'll find incredible resources for every stage of your affair recovery journey. Connect with our team of qualified affair recovery therapists who stay current with the ever-growing, ever-changing affair recovery research that's available to help you heal wherever you are in the process. Take our home study course focused on helping you communicate and express yourself in a way that gets you what you want. You can also book an incredible one-on-one intensive retreat where instead of dragging out the pain over months or years, you can condense the time it takes to heal in just a matter of days using scientifically proven methods that work to help couples lower their guard, let go of the fear, melt the anger, and experience each other at a deep emotional level you may have never experienced before. So what are you waiting for? Go to HealingBrokenTrust.com. Welcome to Healing Broken Trust Podcast with Brad and Morgan Robinson. We are here in rainy Oklahoma. It is raining and flooding, and we're so glad to be inside talking with you guys today. But we have a very interesting topic: when the affair becomes public. Whether it's public to your family or public to the world, the tabloids, whatever it is, the affair is now public. And so we're going to talk about that. And whether you're a CEO of a large company, you're a doctor, pastor of a large church or a small church, a politician, television personality, actor, actress, whatever you are, when or if your relationship issues are made known to the public, there are several ways to maintain dignity, heal, and salvage the relationship if you choose to do so. And, even if you're the people next door, your relationship infidelities or problems are now public, this advice is going to help you to really move forward. And so let's talk about it. Brad, you want to kind of kick us off with some of the main points we're going to talk about?
Yeah, sure. You're bringing up an interesting point. The public humiliation, whether it's a well-known person or it's somebody who is well-known in their community, in their neighborhood or in their church or in their workplace, any sort of public humiliation makes affair recovery, I would say, almost 1,000,000 times harder. Because those who discover an affair, those in general who haven't gone through it and who haven't lived through it themselves, they tend to think they know best on how you should respond and react. And so they see somebody at the office whose spouse has cheated on them, or they see a politician, or they see a Hollywood celebrity whose spouse or partner has been unfaithful to them, immediately assume this is what they should do. We kind of have this bias towards, well, if you leave, you got to be done, because that's what everybody says they're going to do once you cheat on me. That's the one unacceptable thing. So when there's that public humiliation, and once people know, that's part of what people are feeling is this external pressure that they've got to leave, they've got to be done.
Right, so there's extra amount of pressure that's external and not just internal now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, nobody may even be saying you should leave this person, but that's just the pressure that people put on themselves because we kind of assume that's what you're supposed to do. And now that it's public and it's out here, you've got to leave.
Right, and there's probably more voices saying, you're crazy, why are you with them?
And then as you go up the ladder of popularity, celebrity, as you move higher up that level of being well known, then you can find out on social media and tabloids people's opinions about your relationship and about you. And a lot of that can be really negative because you get a lot of people who just don't know anything about what it takes to. They just don't know. And so they're projecting their own values and beliefs onto you, but they have, honestly, usually very little life experience. Those who speak the loudest, those who are the most unaccepting and who speak the loudest, usually have the least amount of life experience. And as a result, they have the least amount of acceptance for other people's flaws
That's a very good point. Also, you're saying that for those who are the loudest and the most critical are typically the ones who have the least amount of knowledge and the least amount of experience, the least amount of maybe wisdom or understanding of any sort. And they're the ones that are the most, that you're going to hear the most criticism and the most complaining because they have such a small perspective on things.
Well, and the more you know about something, the more nuanced it gets, and the less black and white it gets. But when you've lived life and you've had experiences, the more gray things become.
Right. And you can be a lot more generous with your grace and your mercy, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that makes it really hard, though, with an affair that's been public, one of the hardest parts is it becomes it's re-traumatizing. Okay, you see yourself on television. You hear people talking about it. You log into your Facebook account and you get private messages from people. It becomes re-traumatizing.
So
you can't get away from. It's harder to get away from.
Right. So it sounds like one way to combat that would be to have a social media manager, have somebody, if you are a celebrity or you are high profile, have someone else check your messages. Don't go to the store where you'll find, a tabloid. Have your manager or whoever your social media person sift through that so that you have as little of that in your world as possible so that you aren't, hit with all of this.
Yeah. Basically, when we've had clients like this, it's the same basic principles, but it's a different application. When you're more public and with access to Twitter and social media and people can reach you personally and not have, a manager to filter through, and you can just get on your phone and see these things, just pull it out of your pocket, it becomes harder, because you get more traumatized. You see things and you hear people's reactions. And as a result, it's harder for celebrities and VIP people to really work through infidelity because there's this enormous amount of public pressure, but there's also a false belief that, I've got money that I can make up for things, right. Because I've got cash.
Right. So the money doesn't necessarily actually heal or help, or you can't, just because you do conscious uncoupling or you decide to just separate, it doesn't mean that you're any better off. It doesn't actually solve the problems, right? Because we need that bond, that connection with human beings, and one human being in particular being that spouse or that partner. It's a very important bond that you just can't just discard.
Yeah. Morgan, one of the things, when affairs are made public, the higher up you go, it's similar, but there's more landmines when you're more of a public person. You may see yourself on Entertainment Tonight or on another tabloid show or in the supermarket, or God forbid your children see something like that. Right. And it's really bad when that's how they find out about their spouse cheating. In situations like that, that's always been hard for folks because it's almost like seeing it physically happen. I've had individuals where they've walked in on their spouse kissing another person or actually engaging in sexual activity with that other person. That really gets seared into your brain. Those are hard images to shake. And, intensive therapy is needed to work through those. But when you see that and you're just kind of minding your own business and then out of the blue you get this and you're not expecting them to have had an affair and you see the actual physical evidence, it's a hard thing to work through.
It's even more difficult. It's expounded upon whenever the whole world sees it.
Yeah, the world sees it, and then there's this pressure of people saying, hey, you ought to be done. Like people on social media saying that, or criticizing them even. That's another facet of this is, you don't just quit loving somebody because they hurt you or they make poor choices. You don't just quit loving them and then they're blasting them saying that what a terrible human being they are and how horrible they are and how better you are off without them. A lot of our clients who aren't famous, they have the chance to work through things in a closed environment. It's usually just them and their spouse working through it. I'm the only one who ever knows. Right. With clients like that. But when people get famous and then it gets exposed, and oftentimes they also get betrayed by people who are close to them, and then they get betrayed not just by their partner, but also by a really good friend that they felt they could confide in. There's a double whammy of betrayal. It's a lot harder process because you don't have just that chance just to kind of breathe and sort out for yourself what you want to do.
Right.
And you often have a lot of people trying to speak into your life, strangers. It's in the press, it's everywhere. And so it's a harder process. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just harder.
Right. So you just have to sift out what's real, what's not real, what's true, what's not true. And oftentimes you need that help to do that because it's really, it can be very confusing. I think anybody, whether you're famous or not famous, really could use that help to kind of sort through what's real, what's not real.
Yeah. Well, you need it. Honestly, you just need time, like any couple, because when you pull back all the celebrity and fame, you just need time to really, as a couple, to sort out what you really want, and time to think, time to organize your thoughts. That process may mean engaging in therapy, getting expert help in doing that, just engaging in therapy and trying to understand what you want.
Yeah, someone to reflect back to you also kind of what they see and what they're hearing.
Yeah, and just getting help with that, because that first step to really healing long term is deciding what you want. I'm of the opinion that most of the time it's best to heal in each other's arms, where both people need healing. But that first step is just deciding, do I want to stay? Am I going to heal with you together, or am I going to heal on my own? And so you have to decide that. But when you've got all this external noise, and right now, we've been talking about people who are more in the public eye, but people who aren't in the public eye, it's the same process. It's just more stress and difficulty and more cumbersome when other people know. And it's more humiliating. The whole thing's humiliating, but it's a different level of humiliation I've seen. Part of working through this, Morgan, you asked originally, I think, the question, what are some things, if this is a public thing, whether your neighbors know or friends have found out, or whether you're in the public eye nationally, what are some things that you can do to heal and sort this out? I think the first is really presenting a united front while you're sorting out your feelings of deciding if you want to stay or go. You can't sort this out publicly. You've got to go away and you've got to kind of sort out really what you want, because this is long-term consequences. You've got to present a united front, because if you do choose to stay, what you do during that period when you have a united front is going to greatly affect how the rest of your relationship goes. The tempting thing is to get angry and just throw them out of your life, and because you're more public, it's done publicly. Well, it's a lot harder to take somebody back when you've publicly denounced them or publicly taken them out of your life. So I would say present a united front while you're sorting out your feelings of deciding to stay or go.
Another thought would be to conduct yourself with grace and poise. It doesn't mean that you lie and say that it's easy or that it's no big deal. Really, because everyone can see that. I mean, you basically can see right through that. But if you respond with grace under fire and say something like, we struggle like everyone does, and we're in a healing process, that's more vulnerable, but that's more real. And I think that you're controlling the dialogue. You're controlling the conversation out in the public. Because if you just say, oh, no comment, I think that people can start to sort of write the dialogue for you. They can either make it terrible or they can make it positive. But so if you can control what's being said from the beginning, I think that it'll be better. And if you can do it with grace and poise and friendliness and kindness and appealing to humanity, to the humanity of the people, I think it'd be a lot easier to have a more positive dialogue about it. And that vulnerability actually is as attractive. So grace and poise, I think, is the best way to handle it. And like you're saying, a united front, so that you're not bad-mouthing each other, you're not going at each other's throat, because it doesn't make you look very good. It doesn't make you look like you're a very friendly person or a nice person. And then if you decide to change your mind, you've already pegged yourself. You've already pushed yourself into a corner. So a united front with grace and poise, I think, is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Morgan, another thing I would say on your original question of how do we work through this, when it's been public, is
maintain dignity.
Yeah, and all that. And some of these are kind of obvious and some of them aren't, but stay away from triggers like the television, tabloids, the internet. Part of that is, you're going to see other images, you're going to see and hear things, and it's just going to get replayed. It's a lot more painful. I've just seen a lot of people where it's so much more painful when other people see it and are exposed to it, because now you're wearing the scarlet letter. It's not the one who was unfaithful. It's like you get the scarlet letter. Just the assumptions that people have of how you should behave. It's a lot harder. So really stay away from that, because the temptation is to get on your phone and kind of go to the major tabloid sites and look at this and see what they're reporting about you. But you've really got to just kind of
stay away.
just stay away. That's the temptation to do that.
And for others who maybe are not in the public eye, just stay away from the things that trigger you, you know.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about that in previous episodes, things to avoid in order to reduce the traumatic effects.
Yeah, just staying away from social media, period, is a great step forward. Here's kind of a thing that you don't tend to think about when you go looking online. If you don't have many people that you can trust, you know, you have a good friend that you may be confiding in, you may go online and read about how there's some anonymous source feeding them information, you know, and getting paid good money, but you're seeing yourself get betrayed over and over by someone else. And that's kind of another point, is you have to decide who you're going to tell. Under no circumstances do I think I don't think even adult children should know about stuff like this. I think there's probably very limited situations where kids should know about stuff like this, but I can think of a million reasons why kids should not know. And I would even venture to say that adult children probably shouldn't know. It varies, it depends, but kids who are still at home, no matter the age, shouldn't know stuff like this.
They should not know. Absolutely.
And part of the reason you really need to protect the kids is for their own well-being. You know, we've talked repeatedly on here about post-traumatic stress disorder. When people get betrayed, how they have symptoms of that, the kids have it too. And then the kids feel betrayed and they feel rejected. There's no good reason why the kids should know. And the more you fight about this, the more likely the kids are going to know about it. You've got to really be careful with that. And here's another thing that's really important. You've got to get expert help. You've got to really work with professionals who know what they're doing. Morgan and I, we make ourselves available. We're here to help. You've got to get expert help. You've got to get help from folks who know how to help you work through this process. Whether you're a famous person or you're somebody who wants to keep their family together, you got to get help with this. Another thing that you need to do is you got to maintain close proximity to each other. You know, physical distance while trying to work on an affair is hard, because our spouse's presence after we've been betrayed is a healing presence. Even when you're not really getting along, their presence with you is actually better than their distance. Because when they're distant from you, that's when you get triggered, that's when you get reminders, that's when you have the most difficulty sleeping. It's hard. Sometimes it feels like it's almost impossible.
Right, and I could imagine that when they were cheating, they were away from you as well. And so your mind can fill in the gaps. It's re-triggering in a sense. So even if you're not getting along, like you said, Brad, I think that's very wise advice. Now, I know there's some exceptions to that, but we can talk about that at another time. But healing together is always the best way, or usually the best way.
The other thing you want to do is you really want to check your ego at the door. You want to be humble or be humbled. That's sometimes a problem that folks have who are more famous, is they have a lot of confidence and they tend to think their ideas are always right. And so you really have to check your ego at the door. You really got to be humble through this process, because pride comes before the fall. So you really have to be humble when you work through issues like this.
I imagine that humility is really exemplified in the being open and being vulnerable. I think sometimes people, they might hide behind that confidence. It keeps them from being able to be vulnerable or to share those deeper parts of themselves. And naturally so, because they've been betrayed. It's hard to stay open, and it's easy to put up that wall of maybe false confidence. But truly, when you can humble and make yourself vulnerable, you'll be able to heal a lot easier. Wouldn't you say, Brad?
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. Humility can be a sign of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it's good for relationships, because when you get your ego involved, it's just harder, because you're not looking to serve and to be there. You're looking to be served.
Right.
And just to kind of highlight another point, you've got to realize that this will pass. Like the court of public opinion, whether that's coworkers or the country, it will pass.
Right.
You know, there's going to be a new headline tomorrow or next week. People are going to move on with their own lives. And the more that people get involved in your stuff, whether you're famous or whether you are just, non-famous person, the people who get involved the most with this really aren't leading fulfilling lives themselves. People who are leading fulfilling lives, and the kind of people whose opinions that should really count, they don't want to get involved in your business. They want to be friendly and they want to be nice, and they might want to have a listening ear, but they do not want to obsess over your stuff or, get involved in it, and they're not looking to create drama. The people who are unhealthy for you tend to be people like that, who want to get involved in the details and who want to create drama for you and get involved. And so you've got to realize that it will pass. Tomorrow, next week, there's going to be new stories and new headlines. At best, it'll last maybe a week, maybe a few days. At worst, it'll last longer than that. Usually when it lasts longer is when people choose to split up, because then it's like, oh, who are they dating now? And that kind of thing. And so it's just a longer news story. Like just you and your partner, you and your spouse should be the only ones who know this, and your therapist.
Who know about the infidelities.
Yeah, who know about the infidelity and are with you working on the trust issues. Those are some things, Morgan, I think people can apply if it's coworkers who know, friends and family who know.
Or a church or a community group or the work.
Yeah. It does make it harder, but I think you need to, like I said, you got to have a united front. And part of that is we are in marriage counseling working on this. Mm-hmm. You've got to get expert help with this because this is an extremely difficult path even for most therapists to work through. It's an extremely difficult path for therapists to even work people through this, because you're helping people work together where generally the one who was unfaithful has some sort of resentment towards their spouse and they don't trust the one who they betrayed. But then, of course, the one who was betrayed doesn't trust the one who was unfaithful to them. And so you've got to get the right help with this sort of thing.
Absolutely. And if you'd like more information about working with us, you can go to healingbrokentrust.com/retreats. We do work with people one-on-one, and we do have retreats that you can participate in. Have a wonderful week, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Broken Trust podcast. Are you ready to take the next step? Go to healingbrokentrust.com and schedule your one-on-one coaching call today. That's healingbrokentrust.com.